growing tension in the West Wing over how much to cooperate with the investigation.
This week, reporting from the New York Times and CNN revealed more about the FBI's probe into Russia's role in the presidential election.
CNN has learned that investigators wiretapped former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort under secret court order.
The story's painting a picture of an intensifying investigation and a White House scrambling.
But the pressure of the Mueller probe is fueling new divisions among the president's own legal team.
Conversations between Trump and his legal team are said to be heated. Oh, to be a fly on the wall to hear that. Or to be a reporter who finds himself seated near two loud talkers at a restaurant who turn out to be none other than Trump's lawyers.
The lack of discipline shown by this crew is staggering.
That's what happened to the New York Times' Kenneth Vogel. What he overheard and then published revealed a rift in the White House among its lawyers over how much cooperation they should give the FBI. No small scoop. But is reporting on an overheard conversation in a restaurant fair game? All right, Ken, lots of ground to cover. Let's start with how it is that you came to overhear this conversation. Did you know that they were going to be there for lunch? Were they routinely there for lunch, or it was just happenstance?
It was just happenstance. I wouldn't know whether they're routinely there because I'm not routinely there. I've maybe been to that restaurant a couple times in the past, but I did agree to meet a source there. The source actually picked the restaurant, not me. It does happen to be on the same block as the New York Times Washington Bureau, so I wasn't going to complain. And it's a pretty nice restaurant, so I was happy to go meet the source there. We sat down first. The hostess came and sat at the table next to us, which included these two lawyers for President Trump, Cobb and John Dowd. I continued to, to have my lunch conversation with my source, even as I was kind of tantalized by the fact that these two guys are sitting next to me, and occasionally tried to listen in on what they were talking about, but, didn't want to be a schmuck to my source, and gave him my undivided attention until we kind of wrapped up our meal. And I said, I think I'm just going to hang here for a little bit. And so I proceeded to order a few more iced teas and listen in on this very revealing conversation.
So you've realized at this point who they are and clearly what they're talking about. How did you make your notes? Did you record the conversation? Did you, pull out the world's smallest notepad to be discreet? What did you do?
I did not record the conversation, though. It's also notable that D.C., Washington, D.C., is a single-party consent jurisdiction. So only one person has to be aware that something is being recorded. That said, I did not do that. Instead, I took notes on my phone. And this is actually a technique that I've used quite a bit because it is discreet. It's not noticeable. Everyone's on their phone all the time. So for all they know, I was just, responding to emails or looking at Twitter or what have you. But in fact, I was sitting there taking down notes from their conversation. I also did turn my phone very subtly and snapped a photo of them. And that was partly because I thought, isn't this fascinating that these guys are having this sensitive conversation right in front of me in a public restaurant on the sidewalk where they could be overheard by anyone.
And I mean, you're making notes, but at the same time is the other part of your brain saying, I cannot believe these two men who have to understand the need for discretion, if not lawyer-client privilege, are sharing all of this, not just with you, but with anyone in earshot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was notable to me, and I think sort of was a theme in our story. That is the lack of sensitivity and care in handling this incredibly sensitive information.
Now, listen, as a reporter, I am beyond jealous that this happened to you. This is a jackpot moment. But I know there are people who will say, hey, this was a private conversation. People are allowed to have lunch, have a conversation without fear that there is a reporter sitting beside them who works for the New York Times and that they're going to see their conversation on the front page. How do you answer to that charge?
The legal terminology is expectation of privacy. And there is no expectation of privacy if you're in a public place, a restaurant. That said, we did work very diligently to corroborate the information that we picked up from this. There were other aspects of the conversation that were fascinating and I thought could be even more explosive that we did not run because we were not sure of the context and were not able to independently corroborate it. We're still working on that stuff. but that did not make it into our story.
Ken, very interesting to talk to you, and what a wild story to read. Thanks for talking with us about it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.